All right, so this is going to be a tutorial on how to use the EV3 Touch Sensors and how to create a custom program using JavaScript utilizing those touch sensors. In this case, we're going to plan out a short project, a simple idea, and then we're going to do some coding, some pseudocoding, and then we'll actually program our robot and test it out in the simulator, and then we'll load it onto an actual EV3 and test it out and see if it works. All right, so let's check out what we have here. First of all, what is it that we're going to be doing exactly? We're going to be taking an EV3 robot here. Right now I'm using one of the basic bots that was built by a student in the classroom, but it could be really just as simple as just having the regular bot and having a couple of sensors plugged in and some motors. It doesn't have to have this whole setup attached to it. You could build a bot for lots of different purposes. It doesn't have to be this style of bot. I also have two touch sensors here that I'm going to use and I'm going to plug into this bot. So the program that I want to try to create is I want to try to create a left and a right button, basically, to where I can push one of these buttons down and it will activate this wheel, and I'll push down this button and it will activate this wheel. And so I can kind of drive my robot by pushing down the left or the right motor, just to be able to rotate or to be able to drive it with just very simple two-button propulsion. Should be kind of fun to play around with. So let's see if we can get this working. Now we have our general idea of what kind of a robot we want to build, what kind of a program we want to make. Let's go in and actually make it happen. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to go to makecode.mindstorms.com. Make sure you go to this URL, and this will allow you to do your coding. So once you get in there, you want to create a new project. So I'm going to click here on New Project, and I'm going to call this Touch to Steer. That's what I'm going to call it, two-motor touch steering. Just creating a new project here, taking its time. The faster computers get, the more impatient we get. Let me try refreshing this, see if there's a problem here. There we go. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to name this project. Down here on the bottom left, I'm going to change it from untitled to McDowell, my name, and touch to steer. There we go. Or two-touch. I'll put two-touch steering. There we go. Just so it kind of clarifies that there's two touch sensors plugged in. All right, so I'm going to convert this to JavaScript code. I'm not going to do this in blocks. I'm going to do this in JavaScript. So if you've been doing the tutorials, you know what's possible using blocks, but I'm going to show you how you can code using JavaScript so we can do some additional work. First thing I'm going to do is take this stuff out, and as is tradition, I'm going to put in my initials, a comment here. Oh, by the way, to do comments in JavaScript, it's 2 slashes. So you want to put 2 slashes down, and that will do a single line comment. So I'm going to put NKM, and I'm going to put today's date, which is the 20th of April. There we go. And I'll also say what the program name is. So this is touch, or touch steering. And I'll say what the program generally does in another comment here. So uses 2 touch sensors to power 2 different motors to steer. There we go. To steer with wheels. I'll put that in there. All right, so I might also want to put in maybe what is supposed to happen as far as where each thing is going to be plugged in. So I'll say touch sensors plugged into slots 1 and 2. And I'll also put that large motors plugged into slots B and C. Now, just so you know, motors are plugged into the alphabet section of our EV3, and sensors are plugged into the numbered sections of the EV3. So if you're going to be plugging anything in, you're going to want to know that motors are supposed to go in these slots and sensors are supposed to go in these slots. If you plug them in backwards, things will not work. So you have to make sure that you plug in motors into the alphabet and sensors into the numbers. All right, so now let's think about what our pseudocode is going to be. This is something where you want to plan out what's going to happen before you actually code. So I'm not going to actually code anything. I just got to list out what's going to happen. So instead of using octothorpes like we do with Python, we use slashes like this. And I'm going to put in what needs to happen. So let's see. When touch sensor 1 is pushed, we want to start the motor B, because it looks like 1 is going to be on the left. And so I'll plug in my left wheel over here into B here. So I might even want to put that large motors plugged into slots B and C. I'll put B left wheel and C will be the right wheel. Just so that way I can make sure that whoever uses this program kind of knows what's supposed to be plugged in here. So B is going to be my left wheel and C will be my right wheel. So when I push down touch sensor 1, I want to start motor B. And I want to display on the screen that the touch 1 is active. And I also maybe want to put down, I'll make a variable that shows how many times I've activated the left touch sensor. So I'll say display how many times touch 1 was pressed. There we go. So I'm going to have those 3 things occur with the touch press of touch 1. I want the same thing to happen, but I want touch 2 to affect the other wheel. So I'm just going to copy this and say when touch 2 is pushed, I want to start motor C. I want to display that touch 2 is active, and I want to display how many times touch 2 was pressed down. So I'm going to have all that information on the screen, as well as having the motors actually active. All right, so that's generally what the program is going to be. It's just going to do this as a starting program here. We're going to see how we can utilize the touch sensors. Well, let's start off with the first step here. So after we've broken down our problem of everything that needs to happen, this is like the pseudocoding. This is getting everything ready, our plan. Make sure you do this first. If you try to be a coder that doesn't plan first, you're going to find that you're going to be confused and lost a lot. So it's a good idea to list out all the steps and then just approach each one of those steps and complete them one by one. That's a really important thing when it comes to coding, is that you always want to list all your pseudocode, and then you want to go in and fill out each thing. So let's talk about this. When touch 1 is pushed, we want to start motor B. Oh, we also want to make it to where when the touch 1 is released, stop motor B. We want to make sure that happens too. And we want to display that touch 1 is not active or is off. So we'll put that in here too. Display that touch 1 is inactive. There we go. And I'm going to copy this stuff here. These are going to be separate listeners, basically, that are going on here. When touch 2 is released, we're going to stop motor C, and we'll display on the screen that touch 2 is inactive. All right, so now we have our full code ready. We have everything listed as far as what we want to make for this particular thing. Your own custom code, you might have some different pseudocode here, so you don't have to do what I list here step by step. But you do want to list out what you want to happen step by step, and you want to think about things that are possible. You want to think about what happens when touch 1 is pressed down, and you also want to put when the touch sensor is released. You want to have some code for both of those events. All right. So now when touch 1 is pushed, we want to start motor B. Let's go in and actually do this piece of code now. So I'm going to go over here to where it says sensors over here on the left. Go in that sensors display, and you'll see here are the touch sensor commands. There's touch 1 on event. There's touch 1 pause until, so you're waiting until the touch sensor is pressed down. And then there's something where you can actually make a conditional. So this would be like if you're using an if statement or if a while statement, something like that, then you would use this touch 1 is pressed conditional. So I'm going to use the on event here. Put that in here. And now we have this right here, sensors.touch1. So it's specifying I'm using touch 1 right there. And it's saying that when I press down the button, that it's going to do everything that I put in between this curly bracket here and this curly bracket here. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put some code in here. What do I want it to do? I want it to start motor B. All right, so I'm going to go into my motor sections. First, I'm going to put my cursor in between these curly braces here. So I'm in between that line right after the on event handler here. Then I'm going to click on motors and I'm going to choose large A.run. All right, except I don't want it to be large A. I want it to be large B because my motor is plugged into slot B. So where it says motors.large A, I'm going to change that to motors.large B. And you'll see over here in the simulator, it knows that I have a touch sensor in slot 1 because I have touch 1 put in right here. So you can see down here that I have a button here for slot 1. And then you'll see that it has a large motor on slot B, and it's right here. So if I wanted to test this out, I could simply press this touch button down here, and whoa, there we go. I've got, this code works. It's waiting for me to press touch 1 down, and then it's activating this motor down here. Awesome. All right, I want to display, when this happens, I want it to display on the screen that touch 1 is active. So inside this touch1.onEvent, I want to also make it not only run this this motor, but I also want it to display something on the screen. So I'm going to go over here to brick, and I'll see that there's these different things that I have here. There's button down on event, blah, blah, blah. Scroll down. Oh, screen. Here we go. This is what I want. So I want it to show a string. Here we go. I got show string, and I can put that down inside of here. So I'll put brick.showString. I'm going to, because I'm a organized programmer, I'm going to tab it over to make it look like it is part of this section. Now, in JavaScript, you don't have to do this, but it's good coding practice to make it to where you can see when I push the touch sensor down, it's going to do everything that's tabbed over right here. All right, so what am I going to make it say? I'm going to make it say touch 1 active. And I'm going to make it do that on line 1. All right, cool. Now if I try this out, if I press this button down, ooh, yeah. All right, touch 1 active. I can see that it works now. When I push down this button, it's going to say touch 1 active, and it's going to run this motor. And in fact, I might want to make it say that wheel is on. So let me go ahead and put that in here. I'll say, I'm going to copy and paste this, and I'll say, I'll specify what is actually happening. I'll say motor B on at 50%. There we go. Touch 1 active, motor B on at 50%. So now, and then I want to, right here where it says there's a comma and then there's a number. This number is what line on your screen it's going to display. So I'm going to make this line 2 so it appears just below where touch 1 active is. Now let's try it out. Woohoo, there we go. We can see it says touch 1 active, motor B on at 50%. Excellent. All right, so now let's say I want to turn this off. So I need to make it, I want to also to display how many times touch 1 was pressed. So to do this, I'm going to need to make a variable. So I'm going to make one here. I'm going to make a variable up above this stuff. I'm going to create my variables. So I'm going to just make a thing that says var up here. And this is where I'm going to store all my variables for this program. I'm just going to use some global variables for now, just because it's really simple. But you might want to make, for your future programs, you might want to make functions that hold local variables in them. But for this demonstration, I'm going to make it very simple. Now, to declare a variable in JavaScript, you use the keyword let. So I'll say let, and then space, and then whatever I want the variable to be called. So I'm going to say let touch 1 touch 1 number, we'll say that. We'll say how many times it's been pressed down, or touch 1 counter. And I'm going to make it start at 0. So there we go. We can see let touch 1 equals 0. So that means I made a variable. JavaScript, you have to use the let keyword to specify that you want a variable. And I'm going to make it called touch 1 counter, and I'm going to set it initially to 0. All right. So when the code starts towards the beginning of this code, it's going to start at this number. But as the code goes on, I can change what it is. So down here where it says sensors.touch1 on event, I can also make it edit what that number is. So I can go in here and say, oh, let's see, touch_1 counter. You can see that it is now a variable that can be filled out. I can press tab to fill this out, or I can click on this and it will fill that out. And I can say I want it to add to this number. So to do that, I can use an incrementation operator, like a plus equals 1. If I do that, let me zoom in on that a little bit here. Plus equals means that I'm increasing by a certain amount, which in this case is 1. So it's going to add to this touch1 counter. It's going to add to that total and save it, and it's going to add it by 1 in this case. Now I want it to show whatever that particular variable would be. So to string JavaScript and search for that, and you'll see that there's a method here. So you can see that we have to do whatever the variable name is, and we have to put .toString, and that will convert it into a string instead for us. So let's see how we can do that here. We'll say touch1 counter .toString. There we go. And now let's see if this will work. Looks like now we have no error going on here. So now this number here, it's going to convert whatever this number is, and it's going to turn it into a string so that way we can display it. All right, let's try it out. I'll press play. When I press the button, it says 1 here on the screen number. Every time I push this, ooh, it goes up. All right, excellent. So what is it doing? Every time I push the button down, it's starting the motor at 50%. It's displaying this on the screen. It's displaying motor B at 50%, and then it's taking the counter number that we have, increasing it by 1, and then it's displaying a string version of that on the screen here. All right. Excellent. Now we just need to actually turn it off. So let me take this code here and put this in the appropriate places in our code. So we'll say right here that after it turns on the motor, we want it to be active. Just cleaning up my text a little bit so that way I can read it very easily. Taking my pseudocode and just kind of putting it in places where it makes sense as far as describing what's happening. All right, now I need to make one that has the touch1 released. I want to stop motor B. So same kind of thing that I had before. I want to go to sensors, go to touch1 on event, except I want the event to be not pressed. I want this to be released, so I can take this out. If you just put button event and then you put a period, you can see what the options are. In case you forget, you can delete a period and then put a period in, and it'll show you the IntelliSense down here. So I'll say released. When the button's released, what do I want it to do? I want it to stop motor B. So I'll put this in here, large A, and I want it to, or it's large B. I want it to not do that, but if I put a period in, I can see what all the options are. And we can see that one of the options is, if you don't see it on here, you can go into the motor section here and scroll down until you see large A stop. You could put that in, except it's going to be B. There we go. And then I want to change that it says touch1 is inactive. So instead of right here where it says touch1 active, I'm going to change that to be touch1 inactive. And you could use Boolean variables. You could say like touch1 active true, touch1 active false. You could do stuff like that as well. And then I'll take this screen right here and I'll make it motor B is off. There we go. So now if I try this code out, when I press the button down, it says touch1 active. When I release it, you'll see that now it changes what it says. So we have touch1 inactive, motor B off. Every time I push this, You can see that it changes what it says, and also it increases that number. Let's make it to where it actually says what the number, it has a parameter that says what it is here. We'll say touch as a string here. We'll say touch 1 counter, and then we'll put a comma. And if you have multiple parameters, it should work. Is it not showing it here? Touch 1 counter, 2 string. Oh, yes. So it's not show string, it's show value. If you want it to show multiple things, you can make it brick.showValue. And then you can have it actually have different things that it shows. So instead of showing a string here, I can make it not show toString. I can make this just touch 1 counter. So it's going to show this as a string, and then it's going to show the value that I want the string to include. In this case, it's going to show that number. So if you wanted to show 2 different parameters, instead of doing show string, you can do show value, and then you have a name of a value. So this would be a string, and then you have a number that you want to show after that, which is the show value command. So now if I run this, you can see that now not only does it show the number, but it also shows a label for that number. So you can see it says touch 1 inactive. When I push this button down, ooh, it's active at 50%. Touch 1 counters, it will go up as I push this down. Excellent. Now all you have to do basically is push this down, and I'll be able to store this up. Just by clicking on this, I'm ready to go. All I have to do now is copy this stuff over and paste it down here and make it affect a different motor and a different touch sensor here. All right. So you could probably figure that part out. I just have to go in and change some of these numbers here. So right here where you have touch 1 counter, you'd want to change it to 2. Change all the numbers where you have 1 into 2, and change all your motor B's into motor C, and you should be set. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it made you understand a little bit about how to use JavaScript to be able to create this different code, how to plan out a project using pseudocode, and then how to make it actually happen. Until next time, think for yourself. I can't wait to see what you come up with.